Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Guess what I'm going to talk about today? Alhamdulillah, Bitcoin today reached 50,000. And subhanAllah, we were talking about Bitcoin and the FOMO level that it needed to reach last week. And we mentioned 50,000. We're there, moving quickly. It's exciting times, needless to say. And without further ado, let's get started. Not financial advice. Be sure to do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions. Tomorrow, we get the CPI numbers, and what's encouraging here is that the expectation isn't that high for a near-term rate cut. So if you look at March, the probability, or at least the market is pricing in a probability of a rate cut of around 15%. Even for May, the probability of a rate cut is priced in currently at less than 50%. So the expectations aren't too high for an imminent rate cut, which means that there is more room for upside here in terms of the results of the CPI report that come out tomorrow. And actually, I wouldn't be surprised if we got cooler than expected CPI numbers, considering January typically is a slower month for consumers. So we'll see. Tomorrow at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time is when those numbers come out. Bitcoin, as I mentioned, reached 50,000. Congratulations to all the Bitcoin investors and Bitcoin adjacent assets investors. Congratulations to you. And I honestly think that this is probably the start of a much stronger bull run than what we've already seen already, because the momentum is really just building at this point. And as I mentioned, we haven't really taken into account the boost, the tailwind that is likely to come from interest rate cuts later this year. Bitcoin is now in the top 10 in terms of valuable assets globally. So, in terms of market cap, it is one of the top 10 most valuable assets in the world. And something I'd like to point your attention to in this chart is the fact that only 3 of the top 10 assets are commodities. The rest are basically man-made things. So only gold, Saudi Aramco, which I mean basically just proxy for oil, and silver. These are basically the value behind them is really God given, but the value behind all of the other assets here came through human ingenuity, and this is something that I think we should all, as Muslims, focus on and understand and realize as investors, is that the wealth in this world comes from people being innovative and being and working on themselves and making themselves more productive, more efficient. Technology, subhanallah, by far the most valuable thing on earth is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in terms of our ability to think and um, and innovate and create things from the potential that He gave us. And so I just want to point this out for people, that really the sources of wealth for people, for humanity, are other people and what they decide to do with themselves. And for us as Muslims, if we want to be wealthy and we want to be well off, then we need to invest in ourselves. And also, when we're investing our capital, I think we should invest where the ingenuity is and where the innovation is. All right. So this is a slide from last week, and Bitcoin has, alhamdulillah, as I mentioned, reached 50,000, which we mentioned last week was the basically FOMO level. This is the point where FOMO really starts to settle in people, and Why do we say 50,000? Well, because Bitcoin has only spent 4 months or less than 3% of its life above this level. And based on historical trends, this is the level where people really start to feel the fear of missing out. And within the next 5 months, what we saw is the that assets tend to appreciate between 200 and 400% once they've reached this level. So this is one of the reasons why I think the bull run is just getting started. Bitcoin adjacent equities have really done extremely well. At the top of the list today was IRIS Energy. We've spoken about IRIS Energy a lot on this channel. We hold it in our PIF growth portfolio. CleanSpark as well has done well. And I actually did, it's up close to 15% today. And I actually did an analysis of which Bitcoin miners were the most expensive based on the hash rate market cap, what I'm calling the hash rate market cap, which is the price of the company that is associated with its mining power. So I take out the value of its Bitcoin holdings, I take out its cash, I take out its debt, I take out those considerations, and I just see, okay, how much the market is valuing the mining power of the company. And it turns out, and instead of looking at the mining power currently, I looked at the planned mining power. So the mining power that has some merit behind it. There's actual plans to implement or increase the mining power to this the future hash rate that I used here. And so I found that Marathon was by far actually the most expensive of the miners. And you can see the list. So the higher in the list, the more expensive they are, just based on this metric. So hash rate market cap versus future hash rate. And BitDeer and BitDigital, CleanSpark was in fourth place. And then at the bottom, you can see basically the micro miners. So Stronghold, Sphere 3D, and Mawson. So these are the least expensive in terms of how much they are being valued per basically unit of mining power. And the reason why they are the least expensive is because they have the most risk. So you look at something like Sphere 3D or Mawson, and they're basically valued almost one tenth. Uh, their mining power is given one tenth the value of the mining power of Marathon, the same unit of mining power. So you can see that in the event these companies are able to de-risk themselves, whether that's through a merger, whether it's through restructuring, or however they do it, there's really substantial room for appreciation there. However, it is risky, so they are priced this way for a reason. The discount is there for a reason. So I wouldn't really put too much money into names that are towards the bottom of the list. But I think that in the event there's a positive surprise in one of those names, I think they could pop substantially. All right. In other crypto news, the Solana outage was explained. So they did the postmortem on what exactly happened when the network uh, had the outage last week for around 5 hours, and they found out that it was an infinite loop. And so, for people who studied computer science, they're familiar with how pesky infinite loops can be. And it does appear that they not only fixed the infinite loop, but the problem was, or the bug was on their radar before it happened, and changes were being pushed before the outage happened. And they actually did a fix that went to the root cause of the bug rather than just superficially fixing the bug itself, which is encouraging. And what was also encouraging was the market's response to the outage. So you saw a dip in Solana, which was very brief, but the market bounced back very quickly from that dip. However, I do believe that if these outages happen more frequently, so the last outage was last February, if they happen more frequently, the market may not be as forgiving as it was. Solana currently is trading at $111, so really doing well. Solana's second phone, which is basically focused on having sort of native crypto functions like buying and selling and trading and sending crypto. Um, they sold initially. It took them a year to for the first version of the phone. It took them a year to sell. I think 20,000. The pre-sales for the second phone reached 100,000 in less than a month. So, and the reason why, and I'm actually considering whether to buy one. The phone is priced at, I think, $500. Meanwhile, it comes with around $1,100 worth of Solana-based tokens. So something I think encouraging for the Solana ecosystem is that they will have some hardware that actually supports the network. It is no longer alt season, and that's to be expected. So the alt season is basically when 75% of, I believe it's the top 50 cryptocurrencies, 75% of them outperform the Bitcoin over the last 3 months. And right now, we were in altcoin season, but now we are not, which means that there's a greater abundance of opportunities in the altcoin world, because I do believe that what's going to happen is as Bitcoin rises in price, people are going to be less and less motivated by the upside potential that is in Bitcoin. They're going to say, oh, well, I missed it. Maybe there are some other coins down the market cap list. Maybe there are other coins that have, the type of potential that Bitcoin had maybe 5 years ago. So the the proof will be in Bitcoin, and then people will extrapolate from that and say, oh, there are other cryptocurrencies that will be just as successful as Bitcoin is today. And so maybe I can find them. And that's when you're going to see altcoins rise substantially. At least that's what has happened in previous cycles. Now, volume has actually suffered in the last month for cryptocurrencies. You can see that we're basically hovering between 50 and 75 billion in terms of volume traded. Now that has affected the trade play that we've done in PIF. So we have cryptocurrencies that are associated with decentralized exchanges. And over the past month, I think they've suffered primarily because volume has been down for cryptocurrency in general. But keep in mind the peak volume in the last cycle for cryptocurrencies was around 300 billion, and I think this cycle will exceed last cycle. So I think that right now may not be a bad time to actually have some of these plays in your portfolio. So to add some of them in your portfolio, the decentralized exchange plays, that is. Now, on the topic of crypto plays that have performed incredibly well year to date, you have DePIN, or decentralized physical infrastructure. Nosana has caught my eye, and we're going to be doing a deep dive on Nosana for PIF members this week. So we'll see whether it's worth a shot or not. It does combine the very popular decentralized infrastructure play with the with AI. So has both of the sort of very hot sectors in cryptocurrencies and just generally in this one project. So maybe actually quite promising. We'll see. Although I hate investing in something that's up as much as uh, Nosana is up in the last week. So we'll see if there is a pullback. We may be adding this to our crypto portfolio. Do become a member if you enjoyed this presentation and would like even more value. PIF membership provides that extra value. And alhamdulillah, we've been doing very well with our picks. We took some profits today, and we hope you can join us in our community. So we'll take a few questions. Midas asked about Mawson. Yeah, as I mentioned, brother, so different miners are going to have different risk profiles, and they're going to move at different rates at different times. So, the most secure miners are going to move first, with the start of a bull run, and then the more risky miners will move last, but they may move even more than uh, the the more secure ones because of that vast change, as we saw in the pricing. If there's a if there's a change in the perception of a miner from very risky to moderately risky, that's going to really affect how much the market is pricing its mining power. So I wouldn't really bet the farm on any of those names that are lower in that list that I showed you, but they do provide a lot of upside if things go well. Yeah, I do think it's the start of the bull run. Not really sure with flexible saving. All I can say is that any interest, whether it's crypto or fiat, any interest is riba, interest on debt. This is riba. This is different from something like liquidity mining, where you're being paid for providing liquidity to a pool. I think that's fine. I did a deep dive into that. Check that out on my channel. But any interest on debt, so this is where a loan is given out not as an act of charity. There's some worldly gain that is expected from that loan. This is something that you want to avoid. All right. So without further ado, or actually, I'm sorry. Let's meet tomorrow, inshallah, after CPI numbers come out. And thank you for tuning in. Until next time, take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.